So, is screen time good or bad for your toddler? Do you think your toddler is spending too much time with his screen gadget, and is it affecting his health? Well, we'll find out in this video. Hello, you're welcome to Little Angel's Corner, your favorite channel on parenting tips for your little ones. My name is Dr. Stella. So in this video, we're going to delve into this critical area of the advantages and disadvantages of screen time for your toddler. To start with, what do I mean by screen time? Screen time is the amount of time your little one spends on their screen gadgets. That is their tablets, their smartphones, their computers, their laptops, and their TV screens. So, is it a good thing? Is it to be encouraged? Well, let's start with the brain because all this activity is received by the brain. And we know that the first 5 years of a child's life is very critical for brain growth and development because the human brain, by the time the child is 5, the brain has attained 90 to 95% of its full growth and development. So, when the child is on the screen, what is happening is that the impulses are coming from the screen to the child's brain, and the brain does the processing. And the part of the brain that is responsible for most of this is mainly the frontal cortex. Of course, other areas are involved, but the frontal cortex is responsible for the cognitive function of the child. And it is important that the child's cognitive function is developed naturally as much as possible. So when the child spends most of his time on the screen, the impulses that are supposed to be processed by the child and for the child to act it out is somehow cut off. Unlike when you have natural play, when you have non-structured play, the child's brain is made to work for itself, it's made to process thoughts, it's made to act on the thoughts that he has processed, is made to retain the memory of those processed thoughts and then act it out when the brain is challenged with it the next time. However, when the child is always in possession of screened gadgets, the brain is made lazy. The brain is not put through this exercise. Therefore, it's not the best for the child to always have screens in front of him. However, that's not to say that the child having screen gadgets doesn't have any advantages. Yeah, there's some upsides to it. The screen gadget is good enough, it's okay for communication. That is, if the child is to make a video call with his friends or family, it's a good idea. It's a good activity for the brain. It helps the child to communicate and retain that memory. Also, if the parent is there to control what the child is watching, it's also good for the child, especially age appropriate programs. The child will be able to learn with such gadgets. The child will be able to acquire skills for music, for art, and other things, as long as the parent is there to monitor. The key word is parent should be there to monitor. And then also, when you think of the child having the screen gadget with him, it also helps the child to be aware that such gadgets are in use, especially if the child is using it for age appropriate programs. Because we're at an age now that is technology savvy. One cannot do without technology. So we should not deprive the toddler completely of his screen gadgets. So when we now think of the disadvantages, like I've mentioned earlier, when the child has the screen gadgets, it takes up most of his time. Yes, the mother may feel this is now a free period for her to go do some other things in the house and even outside the house. But if the child is to stay with this screen gadget for a long length of time, it reduces the cognitive function of the brain. The brain goes to sleep. The brain stops processing thoughts and actions for the child. And this period is very critical for brain development, like I have said. The brain has to be stimulated through creative, natural play, unstructured play, especially done outside the house, so that the child can interact with his peers and is able to build his brain in this area. Also, another disadvantage of having the screen gadget with the child all the time is that the intensity with which the child is always gazing at this screen, it affects the vision. It reduces the vision in this child. And the child is also most of the time has a short attention span because he quickly wants to run back to his screen gadget. So his attention span for other areas is reduced. We also think of interaction with his peers. A child that is always indoors with his screen gadget does not have a good social interaction and communication with his peers. So it reduces the social interaction with the peers, also reduces language with at that the child is supposed to attain at this age. And in terms of sleep as well, since this screen gadget keeps bombarding the brain with information, when it is time to sleep, if we do not remove this gadget from the child some hours before he sleeps, the brain is overstimulated. The child finds it difficult to sleep, so it also distorts the sleep pattern in the child. And then you ask yourself, so what is the best way to use this gadget? Because, like I've already said, there are some good aspects to it. Therefore, there should be a balance. So, the American Academy of Pediatrics came up with a set of guidelines which helps the mom or any of the parents to monitor the child and know what is best for the child in terms of age and time spent on the screen. Basically, less than 18 months, the child does not need any screen gadgets with him, except if it's to make calls, video calls with his parents and communicate with his friends. Aside from that, a child that is 18 months or less does not need any screen gadgets with him. Then, between the ages of 18 to 24 months, the child can have a screen gadget, but the parent has to be there to monitor. And usually, it shouldn't be up to an hour in a day. And it has to be an educative program that will help the child's intellect. Then, between the age of 2 to 5, the child can also be monitored on the use of his screen gadgets. The child can use this gadget for about an hour with his parents there to monitor him on educative programs. Then, from the age of 6 and above, the child can be allowed to have this screen gadget also with the patients, with the parent monitoring. You can use it for more than an hour, but definitely less than 2 hours. And there should be the supervision of the parent so that meal time is also observed, and it should be gadget free, should be screen free, bedtime screen free. And of course, there should be family time together without screens, and playtime outside without screen as well. And in all of this, the parents must monitor to know what their child is using the screen for. So, having said all this, there are some tips that we should be able to take away at the end of this talk. The screen is not altogether bad for the child. We have to weigh it, the pros and cons, and come midway. Let's use the screen for the toddler. However, the parent has to be there to monitor. The program the child is watching on the screen has to be age appropriate. This is very important. It has to be age appropriate, not something that is way beyond his age and therefore makes no sense to him in the first place. And then also with the parent monitoring, we make sure that the program that the child is watching is something that will elevate his cognitive function. There should be educational programs. Yes, we could also have some play programs that the child can watch. That on its own too, especially in terms of nursery rhyme, it also enhances the child's skills in that area of music and art. There should also be no screen zones in the house, like the dining area, the bedroom shouldn't have screen times. That is, there shouldn't be any screen gadgets in those areas. In addition to no screen zones, we should also have no screen times for these children, meaning that there are specific times that they should not have their gadgets, such as when it is time for the family to come together and talk and chat and play, when there's actually a period for natural play between parent and child and child and his siblings. During those periods, we put the screen gadgets away. We shouldn't use the screen gadgets also as a pacifier, especially when the toddler is throwing tantrums. It shouldn't be something we use to pacify the child. And in addition to that, we should also limit this screen time as much as possible to 2 hours or less. And when it is bedtime, it is a no-no. There should be no screen gadgets near the bedroom. And of course, the parent has to be a role model. You cannot tell the child, don't have this beside you when it's bedtime. Meanwhile, you are carrying yours and you are there in the room. No, because they copy what they see, they emulate from their parents. So, whatever we tell them to do, we should, as much as possible, start by practicing same. So, back to the question now. So, can we now confidently answer this question? Is screen time good or bad for the toddler? The answer is screen time is good. However, it must be monitored by the parents and it should not be extended. There is a time appropriate and age appropriate time for screen gadgets. So I hope I've been able to allay your anxiety and answer most of your questions concerning screen time for your toddler. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Please put them in the comment section. Bye. I'll see you in my next video.